Giving form to the substance of mind or spirit. Giving form to the substance of mind or spirit. That's the definition that Ernest Holmes, the founder of our centers and the author of the Science of Mind text, gives for manifestation or demonstration. And we talk a lot about that around here, don't we? We even have a slip back there that says manifested prayers, that you can tell us about how prayer has manifested or demonstrated in your life. How many have had a prayer answered in their lives ever? Yeah, most of us have, haven't we? So we know that prayer works. We've heard today several people, throughout our service already saying prayer works. It does work. We're continuing with our theme this month, which is, what is the science of mind? What is the science of mind? Anybody besides me ever been asked that? What is that stuff y'all teach at that church you go to? Yeah. Do you have a good, easy, quick answer for them? Not usually. It's deep, right? It takes a few minutes to explain. Yeah. My talk is shoot for the moon. Shoot for the moon. And we're looking at the way it works. Last week we talked about the thing itself and what and where is God. Now that we know that, we're going to talk about the way the way it works. And we're going to look at these first 4 chapters. Many of our centers throughout Centers for Spiritual Living spend the first month, the January month, looking at the basics again, looking at those first 4. They're not really the first 4 chapters. They're just these first 4 books, if you will, that he put in the very front of the textbook that gives us an overview and an idea of this basic, and we look at that as a foundation for us for moving forward in our year. So we're doing that this year, and we're on the second one, and I hope that you're reading along with me. If you remember the first of the year, I invited you all to read The Science of Mind with me this year. I read it every other year to see how I've changed. I suspect that the words in the book have changed all the time because I know I see things in there I've never seen before, and I've read it many, many, many times, but I don't know how he does that, but he does. The teaching just keeps getting deeper and deeper. I'm the one that's changing, not the material, right? So I hope you do. There's a reading guide either in the front or the back of the book that you read just a little bit of it each day, and by the end of the year you'll have read the whole thing. So I hope you'll join me in that. So the title today, again, is Shoot for the Moon, and that is a quote from Norman Vincent Peale. Now, it's also credited to Les Brown, but I think Norman Vincent Peale predates Les Brown, if I recall. Now, he was taught, believe it or not, by Ernest Holmes. Peale followed Ernest Holmes, and that's where he began to develop his positive thinking ideas and so forth that he used, and he credits Ernest Holmes with a lot of that as well. But the rest of his quote, of course, is, even if you miss, you'll land among the stars. Even if you miss, you'll land among the stars. And it's sort of a go for it and grow for it idea, isn't it? It's like go for the high ideal, giving form to substance and of spirit and mind. And all of this relates to the way it works. The way it works. Holmes says in The Science of Mind, let us realize and work with the sound knowledge and perfect faith that as high as we shall make our mark in mind and spirit, so high shall be its outward manifestation in our material world. Now that goes back to that quote, doesn't it? How high we make our mark in mind and spirit. How high have you made your mark? How high have you made your mark? What does that really mean? How high have I made my mark? Well, what are you working on this year? What is your intention that we set a few weeks ago, perhaps? What are you working on in your life this year? How are you growing? What's your growing edge this year? And how high have you made that mark for that achievement of that growing edge? Are you shooting for the moon? Or have you set the mark and then kicked the ladder out of the way? Sometimes we do that, don't we? We set these things called limitations in our life. We set these things called boundaries in our lives that limit us from achieving those marks that we set in mind. How high have you set your mark? Did you set it based on the limitations that you believe? Or did you set it based on knowing that you are an expression of the divine? How high did you set your mark? It's easy to set boundaries in our life, though, isn't it? To set limitations. Because life can be hard. It can scare us. Things happen. We've all been on the planet long enough to have had things happen in our lives, haven't we? Things that we sort of go, I loved, I got my heart broken, I got deceived, not going to do that again. I raised my hand in the meeting to speak up. I raised my hand for a promotion, got rejected, not going to do that again. I saw what happened when my folks got a lot of money, or my aunts or my uncles or whomever, and what happened. I don't want any part of that. We can set boundaries like that, can't we? And we may not even be aware that we're doing it if those things have happened in such a way that it's not really a conscious recognition of, I don't want to experience that again. I don't want to experience that again. But anytime we set that sort of a boundary, we are limiting the way that Spirit can flow through us, aren't we? Because Spirit, like Lori read in our reading today, is always around, in, through, and as us, always impressing upon us the good, always flowing. But we get to choose how much of that or how little of that flows through us. We're always at choice. We get to choose on how that flows. And I'm not saying that boundaries are wrong by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not saying that. I'm just suggesting that we need to make sure that we're in alignment with where we've set our mark and where we've set our boundaries. Because if those two are in conflict, we can't achieve our mark, can we? We can't achieve our mark. And sometimes those limitations and those boundaries that we set are the very thing that's keeping us from achieving what we say we really want to achieve, what we wrote down as our intentions. Sometimes that's what's holding us back. And sometimes we don't even know what it is. We just think this thing called the law doesn't work for us, works for everybody else, doesn't work for me. God must not like me very much. Those thoughts are easy to have, aren't they? What's God got against me this week that everything is going wrong? Yeah, those are easy thoughts to have. But boundaries can end up looking like denials of the good or rejections even of our good. That's what they can end up looking like. Holmes says that we can only see God through our own eyes, and that we'll find a better God when we arrive at a higher standard for man, and I include us as individuals in that higher standard. We have to set higher standards for ourselves, don't we? We have to believe in ourselves, because sometimes nobody else does. So it's important that we believe in ourselves, that we believe in our own divinity, our own connection, our own oneness and wholeness in this divine plan called life. Believing in ourselves. When we continue to judge ourselves and our brothers and sisters as something less, we don't understand God. We don't understand our own divinity. Because if God is all there is, and it can only express through its creation, that would be us. How can we judge anything as not good, not God? Are there bad actions? Yeah. Watch the evening news. People make bad choices all the time, don't they? But isn't that a demonstration of the power of our freedom? Even if it's a bad choice that we don't agree with, it's still freedom. It's the freedom to do that. And that's where our prayer work comes in, isn't it? That's where our prayer work comes in. It's important that we look at separating the belief from the believer. Have you ever heard that? I like to say the act from the actor. because in our world that's probably more relevant. Sean Connery is not James Bond. William Shatner is not Captain James T. Kirk. Now, I know the first time that I saw Sean Connery in the Indiana Jones movie as Indy's dad, and Indiana Jones is more like James Bond, and his dad's more like, Professor Frumpy. It was like, that's James Bond. He can't behave that way. He knows how to do that. I kept waiting for him to, emerge from that suit and hat. But we get confused sometimes with the act and the actor, and we've got to separate those. We're all spirit in form. And we have some bad acting sometimes. Have some bad acting. But we need to be able to see through that, to see the wholeness, to see spirit, to see God. I think I shared with you all that the real estate company that I work in has acquired a couple of buildings this past year. One of them is a cold storage facility, which I've never been involved in a big warehouse like that. And the tenant in this building is a food services company, and they cook food all day long. They package and ship that out. And they cook a lot. Anybody know in a little vent hood thing in your house over your cooking range top, right? It's got that little metal filter in it. That's the fan filter that filters the grease out and captures it before it goes up into the atmosphere and gets on your roof and does all those other things. In the food processing business, they have giant ones, as you can imagine. And they've got big giant filters on them that have to get cleaned pretty frequently because they cook a lot. They cook a lot. Well, it turns out that this company has not been maintaining the filters, and there was a big, greasy, nasty, ugly, gnarly mess on the roof. So the roof is getting deteriorated too. So they're not maintaining it. So it creates a problem, right? And it reminded me of this talk, of course, as I'm looking at that and wondering about filters. We know when we clean the kitchen filter, that's pretty gross, and that's just a little bitty thing, right? But what about the filters in our mind? What about the filters in our beliefs that we've set up to filter spirit? Because isn't that what we're doing? When we start putting up blocking and limiting beliefs, we're filtering the all good of God. We're filtering that all good of God. And we might be even allowing those to build up and create a God with human characteristics. Guy in the sky. Parental. That's one of my favorites. Or somebody we fear. Something we fear, as opposed to understanding the loving, giving presence that is the divine. We only know God through the filters of our own limitation. Because don't we all, we talked last week that God is a relationship, but don't we all really have the divine, have God, have spirit as our own perception of it? And it is easy to put human persona on that. Yet we need to get a bigger God, don't we? We need to get a bigger God. We speak of the law, and then it works mechanically. It works with mechanical accuracy and is infallible. Those are Holmes's words, which is why I stumbled over them. Mechanical accuracy and is infallible. But the only way that it can work is through you and me. That's the only way it can work. It's much like an apple tree. An apple tree is the only way that apples are produced. Spirit doesn't create apples out of thin air, right? Spirit must use the apple tree to produce the apples or the grapefruits or whatever it is. But that is the creation through which the apples come, is the tree. And we are the highest form of spirit on our planet that we're aware of. And spirit creates through us. Through us. And that's the way it works. That's the whole point of this chapter that we're talking about today, is how does it work? It works through us as we believe, as we allow. So where are your filters? What are you saying? Nah, not that. I'm not good enough for that. I don't make it welcome. I couldn't possibly accept it. What would people think of me if I had it? And this can be love, joy, What if I was a happy person all the time? Would people like me then? Right? Crazy things we can make up in our heads sometimes. So done unto us as we believe. Anybody familiar with a cookie press? You ever seen one of those? I thought this was another great example, metaphor, for the way the creative process works. We talk a lot about seed, soil, and plant around here. And we pretty much get that idea. But this is the same thing, isn't it? Because you've got a cookie press that holds the divine substance, right? The press is the law, because it's a mechanical, infallible operation. If you put the dough, the universal substance, in that, and the law is going to press that through, there's a metal disc on the end of it that's got a special little design of your creation that gives you whatever the form is. The dough comes through. Isn't that cool? I thought that was a cool example. But the thing itself is the dough, and we are the discs. We are the discs, and the law is the press itself. The law is the press itself. So if you feel like your life is less than magnificent in any area, I know none of you do. I have a couple, but that's okay. That's my stuff I'm working on. We can choose a new shape. We can choose a new shape. And sometimes it's our attitude that can help us to form that shape. We talked a few weeks ago about how our attitude can be that filter that we have, that spirit has to make its way through, or that we put our own expression on. The way spirit is coming through us is through our attitude, our personality, our individuality. Done as we believe. And those cookie press discs, they're hard because they've got to take the pressure of the press pushing through them, right? And the dough coming through. They're hard. We have hard beliefs too, don't we? Some of them empower us. God is all there is, and I can use the creative process to design my life. That's a hard belief. I hold firm to that. That's an empowering belief for me. But we also have some that don't serve us, that are hard beliefs, that we need to look at sometimes and determine, are these still producing the shape, the form in my life that I desire? I say I want this, but man, I'm getting these squirrely little cookies that I don't like anymore. I'm getting bows and snowmen and wreaths, and it's Easter. I want bunny rabbits and eggs and things. What's going on? I have to change the disc, don't I, if I want to get a different shape? And I can do that. I have the power to change the disc, to change my attitude. But we all have those places of, yeah, it works here, but it doesn't work there. Politics is always a good one, isn't it? Washington is a nutty place. Anybody watched the news lately and heard what's going on? It's a nutty place. We see it on both sides of the aisle. It's consciousness, isn't it? Are we seeing that outpictured in other places in our world, in our private lives, in our careers, in our families? Yeah. Is it consciousness that's doing the things in Washington, or Washington that's doing the things in our consciousness? Or is it all because it's all one? And that's where our work is, isn't it? As religious scientists, as metaphysicians, our prayer work is in the oneness and in the wholeness, is in the unity, is the coming into the higher conscious awareness, setting that mark very high of the divinity of life flowing through all for the win-win. God plays no favorites. The law plays no favorites. It's all about win-win. And that's where our prayers are. That's where our prayers are. So Spirit, again, only works for us by working through us. Those apples can only come through the apple tree. What are you allowing to come through you? Holmes tells us we need to learn to believe. We need to learn to believe, to flex and grow our spiritual muscles, and to expand our awareness so that we can become better receivers of Spirit's good. Can become better receivers. And when we learn to believe, That's when we're practicing the presence, which is our theme for the whole year this year. Practice the presence. Holmes invites us to instill in our mind the fundamental belief that good is without bounds. Do you believe that? Do you believe that good is without bounds? What's that movie, As Good as It Gets? Good is without bounds. Only we put the governors on it. Only we put the governors on it. Can we have more love in our lives and in our planet? Can we have more peace? Absolutely. Absolutely. But we get caught in the conditions, don't we? We get caught in the fog of the conditions and the effects of what's happening right now and right here in front of us. And it's hard to see through that. It's like that actor in Act we were talking about. It's hard to see through those. And I get it. Some of them are really icky, nasty stuff that we deal with. And we've got tools and support staff here to help, and our practitioners, our ministers, to help us through those bumpy times. But those conditions that are with us today are the thinking of yesterday. So the key is to think the new thought today, to change our thinking, to see through the conditions, to find spirit in that, and to create new for tomorrow, so we're not continuing to experience the conditions and effects that we're experiencing today of yesterday's thinking tomorrow. Make sense? Want that one more time? What we're thinking about today is what's manifesting tomorrow. What we are experiencing today is what we were thinking about yesterday. So we have to clean up our thinking in the moment, in the present reality. But like I say, when we're in the throes of the effects and the conditions, it can be hard to see through that fog. So get a spiritual partner, get a prayer partner, get a practitioner, and help them shine, let them shine the light for you so that you can have new thoughts, new thinking to create new in your life. It's changing those discs, it's cleaning the filters so that tomorrow's grease coming out is clean. It's filtered out. It doesn't get on the roof. Got it? Yeah, all right. How do we do it? How do we change our thinking? You ever wondered that? Well, we do it the same way that we created it, don't we? One thought at a time. One thought at a time. We choose, make a choice to believe something different. We fill our minds with positive thoughts. We fill our minds with positive readings. We do it one thought at a time. It requires building that faith, that relationship with the divine, with spirit, like we talked about last week. And it's learning to trust that God is all that there is. And we are an expression of it. And the universe only wants the best for us. And when we can get ourselves to that place of knowing that, then we can keep ourselves in that higher vibration of recognizing spirit as us and allowing it to work through us. So shoot for the moon. It's done as we believe. Shoot for the moon. How much can you believe? How much can you accept? You ever asked yourself that? How much can I accept? What's too good? Challenge yourself this week. How much can you accept? Anybody ever pushed away some wonderful offering? Somebody offers you a free whatever. I think I shared with you last year that the Phoenix Open, I had some tickets, and people were standing in line to buy tickets, and I said, I've got free tickets that I don't need today. I guest canceled. Would you like them? Oh. And they continue to stand in line to buy tickets. We do that stuff, right? I know, we do that stuff. Somebody will offer you a free, would you like a free sample? No, not me. No. Now, part of that is our wariness, I guess, in society. But isn't that also telling the universe, nope, no thank you? How much good can you accept? How much good can you accept? Can you see through the conditions and the effects your own limiting beliefs to the truth. It's another place we can practice too, isn't it? Is recognizing what are conditions and effects in our lives and what is truth. And when we can recognize conditions and effects, we can begin to see through them just a little bit. And if you can't, please call one of our practitioners. Have a conversation. I think I'm in conditions, but I need some help in seeing what this is. Where have you placed your mark in mind? Have you placed it high and kicked the ladder away? Or have you placed it high and built a sturdy staircase to take you there? Where have you placed your mark? Let's look at our practicing the presence this week. Our first one is, of course, change the filter. Change the filter. Clean your filters. The way it works is through us. That's the whole point of this chapter and this talk, is that Spirit can only work through us. If your dream is not coming about, maybe it's time that we change how we think about it. Clean it up. Shift our perspective. Raise our consciousness. These are the only ways that we can change the filters. We have the maintenance contract on it. It's up to us. It's up to us. Number 2 is choose that new disc for your cookie press. Pick a new shape. Come on. It's time to move on from Christmas cookies to something else, isn't it? We have St. Patrick's Day coming up and then Easter, I believe. We can consciously choose our attitudes. Whenever you catch yourself in a less than supportive attitude, let's say, is what I'm experiencing and feeling and thinking in this moment supporting what I'm really trying to call into my life? And if you go, maybe not. Maybe being Miss Cranky Pants in this moment is not calling in the joy and the peace and the love that I want to experience in my life. Choose a new attitude. Choose a new attitude. Remember the power of our imagination? We can imagine something better. Okay, if I was drawing in the peace and the harmony and the joy in my life, how would I be? Oh, I wouldn't be doing that. I'd be doing this. Imagine what that would feel like. Go back into that feeling of the blossom that we talked about, remember? It's time to be the blossom. Feel what that feels like. Use that in this idea of choosing the new disc and shifting our attitudes. And number 3, as I said, prayer is our most powerful spiritual practice. Our most powerful spiritual practice. If you don't know how to do it, ask us. Ask the practitioners. Ask me. We've got an affirmative prayer flyer back there that's got how it's broken down and how it's got an example and it's got a space for you to write your own. It's the most powerful tool that we have. You can submit an online request on our website. You can leave a written one. You can see one of these beautiful practitioners here in service each Sunday. It's easy to learn. It's something you can do at any time. I pray all the time. Practice and see your prayers manifested in form. So the thing itself is God. God is relationship. And the way it works is through you and through me as we allow it. As we allow it. And through continuously choosing and aligning our beliefs, we can shoot for the moon. We can shoot for the moon. And sometimes we'll hit that, won't we? Most of the time we'll land among the stars. And that's not all bad. So I would invite you to join me now in practicing our presence as we practice an affirmative prayer. Would you join me? How good it is that we come together in celebration on Sunday mornings. Coming together in community to experience the divine, experience the wholeness of spirit, of source, of essence and presence, of this thing we call God, of life itself. It is the infinite love and harmony. It is joy and peace. It is the all good, the ever-giving presence of life itself. And all of that is here now present in this room, in, through, and as me and each one of us that is gathered here and anyone in the sound of my voice, knowing that we are manifestations, demonstrations in form of this creative intelligence, this power and presence that is in the universe, that holds planets in their orbits, that creates apples from apple trees, and that has created each one of us. And I know that we are united in this wholeness in this day, in this love, in this harmony. And so knowing that, I speak my word for and about each of us. Knowing the full expression of life as us, that whatever spirit, whatever desire spirit is placed in our hearts, that spirit has also given us the creative ability, skills, talents, wisdom, and intelligence to bring that forth. Because there's no desire that spirit would ever plant that we would not be able to create in our lives. And knowing that, we open to allow that manifestation through us. Whether it's love, peace, harmony, joy, a career that's rewarding and satisfying, whether it's abundant flow of wealth and prosperity, health, whatever it might be, we know that that's possible. And I know for any of those that has anything on their heart this day that they are seeking prayer around, that as we lift that into this consciousness, as they lift it into their awareness, that it is made manifest, that it is healed, revealed, uplifted, whatever the need is, that it is solved and resolved in this moment. And I speak a word for any of those in our community and beyond that are struggling with this thing called flu, this dis-ease in the body, knowing that health is restored and returned and revealed as each one of them as the wholeness of God that they are. And so it is with great gratitude, great joy and thanksgiving that I release this into the activity of law and the action of mind, knowing that it is done, it is so. And we affirm this together by saying, and so it is.